Well, I'm now in Larry's neck of the woods, and Larry's not here. So, Larry, how's still going good in France? Are you still having a good time?
Yeah, we're having a lovely time in France. I'm looking out at rolling green hills, some old cottages and old country houses. It's very beautiful here.
I am experiencing humidity. That's, but actually, it's very beautiful here, of course, in South Carolina. Very different than what I'm used to in Riverside. We have some differences happening in the world of Tesla. Some very big, major stuff going on. I
Yeah.
have a thesis, Larry. My thesis is, and I think I'm right on this. I don't think you're even going to argue for a minute that Elon, about 30 days, maybe 45 days ago, turned his attention to Tesla. He's X.com and X.AI are going along just fine. He's made all the major changes he needed to make. He's got things rolling, and he realized that Tesla was where the energy was needed right now. And I think it happened about 30 or 45 days ago, and now it's even more intense. And I base that on a head. I was already thinking this way, but I really thought it this morning when he canceled his trip for tomorrow to India. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, he is in war mode or demon mode as the book had it. He is in war mode. He's realized that Tesla is at a crossroads, very serious crossroads, and that he's in war mode. Now, you can agree or not agree with his analysis of the situation. Um, and you can criticize or not criticize his actions, but we've seen him in war mode before. I think the last time he was in war mode in Tesla, it's hard. Well, I got to be a little careful here because clearly the pandemic put him in war mode, but the 2017-18 ramp put him in war mode. I think there's little doubt that he's back in war mode or demon mode, and he's going for a particular target, and that target is robotaxis.
Right.
I listened to a fantastic YouTube, and it's on X actually, on X.com, called BG2. I don't know if you watch it at all. Bill Gurley and Brad Gerstner.
I saw parts of it.
Yeah. Amazing conversation between the two of them. And it's very interesting because they are, OG Silicon Valley guys.
Right.
And, they're analyzing the robotaxi opportunity from a Silicon Valley perspective. And what's more interesting is that they're both major investors in Uber.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They were two of the original investors in Uber. So, so they have they're talking their book because they're invested in Uber, and so they want to see if they want to understand it from the perspective of Uber, and they make some very, very salient and I think excellent points about the opportunity for Uber and Tesla to cooperate, which is entirely within what I've been saying all along. But everybody has their own perspective, but they definitely see the play between Uber and Tesla. I think they understand the complexity and the difficulty of building a robotaxi network.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what Elon is tussling with at the moment. He's really focused on rolling it out by 8.8.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether he'll roll out the network by 8.8, but he'll definitely roll out the business plan or the business model, or give us an outline of what the schedule is, at least. I would hope he tells us a little bit more about the business model, shows us the app, shows us the operation within the app. It would be really nice if, you know, I can never pronounce his name, but the CEO of Uber were up there to talk about their cooperation. Maybe the CEO of Hertz to talk about their cooperation, but that hasn't been the style at Tesla up to now. They've not had their partners up to talk about it. But, you know, BG2 are aligned with me about that idea.
Yeah.
But that Elon is in war mode, and that Elon is considering carefully the ramp, the introduction and ramp of the robotaxi network. And we can talk about, you know, the business models and so on and so forth. I think we've already touched on those.
We have, yeah.
But I'm aligned with you in what you're saying.
Yeah, so the war mode obviously would be over a launch. I mean, that'd be one reason, is because there's a lot to do between now and August 8th to get that to happen. But the second part of war mode might be, okay, I'm coming into Tesla, coming back to Tesla. I'm not like he was ever gone, but I'm coming back on my focus on Tesla.
Refocus.
Kind of a Twitter purchase day moment where it doesn't need a turnaround. I think that's would be too strong, but it needs a fresh injection of some kind of energy in order to quote a word, some kind of energy in the sales department. I've been saying this for how long? For months and months and months. Is that I don't think there's an excuse for the sales being down. And I think maybe Elon is saying he doesn't see an excuse either. And I think that's where we're going to see the energy. I think the energy will be, we've got the drop, $2,000 price drop this morning on the Ys, S's, and X's in the United States. While I'm not sure that that's the right solution for the right time, they've got way more data than me. So they must believe for some reason that a $2,000 drop is going to have a significant impact on sales, or they wouldn't do it. So would I do it maybe a different way with lowering the buying down the interest rates to 2% or something, or some major advertising campaign, maybe. But I think he's going to be in charge of. He says he's in charge of sales for North America now. So I think that's going to be a big part of what he's going to be doing.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not aligned with him in how he's approaching, you know, the sales. Now, the $2,000 price drop is probably because he's got a massive inventory on hand and he has to get that moved. Is a $2,000 price drop the right solution? He obviously thinks so. I'm not aligned with that. I would think that, and the other thing is, you know, the problem is not price.
I don't think so either.
The problem is price range. Yeah, I'm aligned. I know what you're going to say about marketing and sales and advertising and blah, blah, blah. But to really move the needle on sales, they need a wider range of vehicles. And you're not going to have a wider range of vehicles, you know, for at least another 15 months.
Right.
So if you're not going to have a wider range of vehicles for the next 15 months, you have to make a decision. Do you reduce production across the board, or do you reduce the price across the board? And I'm not sure that he has a lot of choices. You know, I've seen some criticisms of saying, well, a $2,000 price cut multiplied by 1.8 million cars is $36 million. $3.6 billion. It's so much money and it'll cost you this much. Yeah, but calculate no sales
Right.
of those vehicles for that period of time and look at the lost gross margin.
Right.
When you don't have the range of cars to cover the market, you either have to drop the price to expand the TAM, or you have to reduce the sales. It's not complicated. It's as straightforward as that. Now,
I remember something in business school, supply and demand. I don't know.
yeah. Now you've made the point again and again and again, and are about to make it again, that, there are areas of the country where the car hasn't been exposed yet. And so it's not meeting its TAM anyway in those areas. And that is a huge opportunity. I'm not sure whether you can get away with not raising the price in those areas not
lowering
dropping
the
the price in those areas and dropping them in the other area. That's kind of complicated. But I would say that you really have to do more of both. You have to market in the areas where you're so weak. And the problem is, since you're doing direct sales, you have to establish the infrastructure to support that. And that takes time. And that has been, I think, one of the weaknesses, that the infrastructure build out probably is not as strong as it should have been because of the lack of sales. So, this is a chess game. There are 64 squares on the board. There's a lot going on in every square of the board. You have to play the whole board. You can't play, this little part of the board or that little part of the board. You have to play the whole board. And I think that what was a really great strategy 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, ran out of gas because you only had two volume models on, and so everything stems from that. Now, how you deal with that, we're talking tactics.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also, it occurred to me this morning, you also have a situation where the Model Y in particular, without any refresh, the Model 3's got the refresh, Model Y doesn't, but without any refresh, it is now the best-selling car in the world.
It was.
In the world. Well, it's back to being number one. It's back past, should have.
We don't know.
Yeah, but let's just say
it's quite possible that in first quarter it is no longer.
Well, let's call it close to still big numbers, really big numbers. Yeah.
They lost a huge quantity of sales in Europe for the Model Y in that first quarter. And so I think that you're going to find that that first place they've dropped. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but you're still selling a massive number of very expensive cars. And so getting that next incremental piece of that market is also a different story. Now you can get it by expanding your territory, by opening up in Chile and opening up in Southeast Asia, etc. That's another way to do it. And they're doing all of those things. But getting 100,000 more or 200,000 more, you're not going to, the markets are going into now, other than, let's say, Japan, if somehow they were able to figure it out in Japan or figure it out. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, if there was the markets that are left that are significant, middle west of the United States, or the whole flyover section of the middle west of the United States, and Japan would be the two markets that have enough buyers that they could make a pretty significant impact. So outside of that, advertising, and this morning, James Stevenson, I cannot underscore enough, says Google Trends data indicates Tesla's advertising campaigns are working well. That's a pretty strong word. Driving prospective buyers to search for more information about Cybertruck and Model Y.
Yeah, we've seen a very good pickup over the last month and a half, or 2 months actually, of Google search activity on the Model Y. No question about it. And Europe is selling right now. Europe's doing quite well. My understanding of the early numbers in Europe are actually pretty good. And that's probably because the ship's finally arrived.
Finally arrived, right?
But you know, the point is you have to play the whole board.
Right.
You cannot focus on a small portion of the board because, I mean, I was a chess coach. I would talk to my kids again and again and again. Guys, look over the whole board. Sit on your hands. Look at the whole board. And that's my concern, is Tesla is not looking at the whole board. And if I were to look at the whole board today, I would say that the $25,000 car is a crying need. You can build all the robotaxis you want. You can build a massive business in the robotaxis. But if you want to be in the auto business, you got to make up your mind. If you want to be in the auto business is in the $25,000 car.
And I would also say that Elon has talked about this, is that every $25,000 car is also a potential robotaxi.
That's it.
So
That's
it's,
it.
and so
Yeah.
there's that as well. Have you ever heard anybody in authority at Tesla, Elon, anybody else in authority at Tesla say that the Model 2 has been postponed or are taken
No.
off the table? No.
No, they have not said that. But what the Tesla Q and the press
Mhm.
and some analysts are picking up on is that in the book, you know, he pushed back mightily on building the Model 2 in favor of the robotaxi, mightily. And
Right. Had this argument with the rest of his executive leadership. Yes.
yeah, and the team pushed back, and he was very rough on them until they showed him, you know, the drawing, the renders of the car, and he was pretty excited about that, and he gave in. But you know, we all know Elon, or we all don't know Elon equally, and he could well say, guys, I don't care what you say, this is what we're going to do, and do it. And so the press could be guessing wrong, but finding right.
Yeah, that's true. It's possible. Possibly, that's a very good possibility. Do you think that he will give us the answer on Wednesday? Do you think he will specifically say, no, the Model 2 has not been delayed, you know, but or that it has been delayed? Do you think we will get some clarity on Wednesday?
I think we better get some clarity on when. Now, you know, my idol Dan says,
Right.
you know, we can't have another shit show in his, you know,
Yes.
in his colloquialism.
Yes.
And it's very important that Elon turn up and that Elon be in good spirits and Elon not be combative with the analysts and not clam up. You know, when he becomes combative, he stops. He doesn't give any information. All he does is go back to his wise saws and modern instances.
Right.
So it's very important that he be collegial and that he be relaxed and that he give us a vision. And look, it could be a vision that none of us buy into. It could be a vision that none of the analysts buy into. It could be a vision that we buy into and the analysts don't. It could be a vision we all buy into. But he's got to give us a vision. And it's got to be a positive vision. Not for the share price. I don't give a fig about the share price, as you know. Not for the share price. But for our own conviction and to allay our concerns and our lack of clarity about what the plans of the company are.
Right. Rally the troops.
Yeah, rally the troops. Now, our lack of clarity may be just because of the confusion of the press and the analysts feeding back on us. That's more than possible. But you know, I'm a firm believer in the company and a firm believer in Elon. I have lack of clarity.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. So India has been postponed in terms of him going there. We don't know whether that means he's postponing activity there. So any thoughts on whether you think this will mean, because he's not going, that that this will now be delayed in terms of rolling it out?
Yes and no. I think that Elon probably had made a decision about India before he decided to postpone it. You know, without Rohan, he doesn't have the, I don't believe he has the interpersonal communication with the Prime Minister
Hmm.
in India. You know, I'm sure that can be reinstated and will be reinstated. But Rohan was the magic, was the, you know, the lubricant to the relationship and so on. So it's unfortunate, but you know, if his focus remains on expanding to India, he will resurrect that in due course. But you know, in demon mode, it's better for him not to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Better him, you know, to really, you know, get through the crisis, get through the reshaping the pieces he wants to reshape, get that done, and then with a clear head, go ahead and get done what he needs to get done in India.
Yeah. So we could be looking at a 3-month period of sleeping on the floor in the factory, as the phrase has become. And then we'll have the announcement on 8/8, and then maybe on to other activities. In the meantime, he may be team building for some of these other activities. I'm way more interested in Reno than I am India. Between the 4680, the new chemistry from CATL equipment, the semi truck, those things are way more interesting to me than India.
You're
Um,
right. You're
yeah.
right. For the moment.
Yeah,
I
oh
mean,
yeah, no, I think India's a great play long term, but in terms of immediate, I just am shocked that the semi truck is not further along. Now, there may be very, very good reasons in terms of things they learned from Pepsi that have caused them to slow that down, but it just surprises me. I'm just continue to be surprised that that one's not rolling along at a much faster clip, so to speak. Again, using all these.
well, it could be the timing. It could be the timing of the supply of batteries. You know, there's the factory in Kentucky that is just being built, just a building right now.
Right.
And we know that that's a building. We know that it's serious.
The
We heard
Panasonic.
the Panasonic factory, and then there's the LG Chem factory as
Right.
well. And the timing of those coming on stream could well be dictating the timing of the factory, the semi factory. And the reason the semi factory hasn't started is they're timing the capital spend for that, for those batteries. So we're probably a year and a half away from the semi actually becoming, you know, going into production. We have to be, because that factory is going to take a year to build.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about 4680? The other thing that was that leadership changed on was the 4680 line.
Well, not really. I mean, Drew was focused on it, but the manager of that, the leader of that team is still in place, and one assumes that they were in their they are in their ramp. They have an embarrassment of Cybertrucks right now with the recall, but so I don't think they have a problem on the 4680 for the Cybertruck.
Mhm.
Now, 4680 beyond the Cybertruck, I don't know. You know, I don't know what the plans are and where the plans reside and so on and so forth. But look, there are a lot of moving parts. A lot.
Well, let's turn our attention for a minute, unless you have other things about Tesla you want to talk about. Let's turn our
Okay.
let's turn our attention to the general economy. And you and I have been having a great fun talking about recession, no recession, maybe recession. Okay, so one of the big uh, predictors of recession is the market. It tends to predict 6 months in advance, 6 to 9 months in advance, what's going to happen in the overall economy. So starting 10 days ago, I think I was the first person in the world to call the pullback on the S&P. And of course, all the equity markets, but S&P being the core. But I said, it seems like to me it's out over its skis, and it just is that. And sure enough, the clock is right, twice a day. So I I saw, and so we've got the S&P, well, all the equities down pretty much about 7.5% at this point. So we're not quite to the technical correction of 10% yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet. And corrections, I think, I didn't look it up to confirm this in my head, but my feeling is that corrections are not necessarily predictive. I think you have to go to your full 20% before you're really predicting the economy. This is more of a breather, more of a technical thing where the stock market from time to time needs, take a
We
rest.
don't know.
We don't
We
know.
don't.
So right now, I'm saying that we do eventually, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we do get that 10% down, unless there's an incredible surprise on earnings or an incredible surprise on inflation. We're going to get this 10% correction. May not be next week, it may be the following, but we'll get it at some point. What do you think? Do you think this is predicting anything? You've been 100% recession guy. You said last time that you were modifying, that you'd come down a bit. Since I talked to you, I've come up slightly to a 10 to 20%. So where are you today, and what do you think about this sell-off?
Yeah, between our vacillations, backwards and forwards on this recession thing, we kind of reflect what's going on in the minds of economists and people everywhere. Look, there are some really bad indicators, and there are some not so bad indicators. Interest rates are a bad indicator. They're
Yeah.
just a bad. And the market rose on expectations of continued growth of earnings. They have disappointed. That continued growth of earnings have disappointed. What is interesting is that NVIDIA is down so significantly.
I know.
That's one of the more interesting indicators to me. So, I'm looking at the auto sales, and auto sales are plunging right now.
Yeah.
That's generally a very good indicator, reflection of, what's coming. And we do know that there's going to be a massive hit on multifamily in the coming, 6 months, just because of all the multifamily stuff that's coming online.
Right.
So we could well be, at the brink of a recession. It's more than possible, and I'll be able to lord it over you and say, yeah.
So Redfin's president or CEO came out this morning, said this is the worst housing market he's ever seen. Now he's talking residential, not the multifamily.
But you know what's so strange about that, Randy? What's really strange about that is that my house is at a peak price that it's been, in history.
Yeah. Mine too. All mine. All my residential.
That, it's
It's
so
not, no,
strange.
he's not saying that he says the prices are up. He says, and in fact,
Right.
he reflected on exactly the same thing you and I have been talking about, I think, for 9 months, which is the way to get the housing market started again is to lower the interest rates, because people are stuck in their homes. They're sitting on 2 to 3% loans. And so even if they want to downsize, they're old like you and me. And they're like, okay, I don't really need 4,000 square feet anymore, or even 2,500 square feet anymore. But what can I do? I can't get out of a 3% loan and go into a 7% loan, because I'm going to have the same mortgage payment I've got now on half the house. So people are just sitting in, rattling around in these massive homes with one or two people that the kids have all moved out.
Yeah. time will tell, but I think one of the really serious threats to the economy right now is a potential oil shock.
Yeah.
And that's something that, fortunately, this attack by Iran was diffused and the response from Israel was very muted. And so it's more than probable that that problem has gone away. And from the looks of it, it looks like Congress today is going to pass the Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan support.
Right.
I think they're 4 separate bills. I think they'll pass it, and I think that will ameliorate the oil price problem, potential problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that could be, a good sign. So really, we're in this balance, this really critical balance. But what's interesting is that inflation has not come down.
Right.
It's being very sticky. And it doesn't matter which number set you go to, it's being sticky.
Yeah, and interestingly, though, even after my conversation with Trueflation on that Spaces last week, they're still showing inflation at 2%. So they haven't found out, they haven't come around to figuring out where their difference is with CPI. But maybe
a little bit more than 2, right?
I think I didn't look this morning, but they've been around. They were around 2, but they had gone up, 50 basis points. They had been at 1.79 and jerked it up to 2.2 something, and then dropped down again.
Yeah, I've kind of lost confidence in them. They had me there for a while. They had me, believing them.
Yeah.
And then those numbers went too crazy.
Yeah. It's hard if you can't figure out I just said, look, make sure that you give us a very thorough understanding of why you make these changes. So we'll see if they do. But anyway, whether it's 2% or it's not 2%, apparently, at least the CPI, PPI, and we'll see PCE in a week or so, is not showing 2%. And that's what the Feds are going to pay attention to. And that's what also, I guess, treasuries are paying attention to in order to get the real interest rate. That's what people want. But my other theory on that, Larry, is that if we stay at 5.5%, if we stay at 7% mortgages, if we stay at 8% auto loans, that the people will eventually have to move. They'll have to say, you know what? It's what it is. You get used to it, so to speak. I mean, we were in those numbers for 30 years, from the 70s until the end of the 90s. We were in those kind of interest rate.
No, S&P's got much higher than that.
I'm saying higher than that, but I'm just saying we weren't talking about 0% Fed rates or 3% mortgages. We were talking about 7, 8, and higher, as you point out. So I think there's a point at which the young people that are looking to buy a house go, what choice do I got? I'm going to have to buy that 1 bedroom, 1 bath if I'm going to get into the market.
What will ameliorate that situation is this enormous wealth transfer that's taking place right now from old farts like us to the children, and that will overcome those problems. If your child has got a mortgage at 2 or 3%, but is able to pay it off and maybe sell the house and go into a much bigger house. So the wealth transfer is having a big impact, I think, on the ability of those that are younger to continue to spend even in these times. So I think that's something that we haven't seen before on a scale that we're seeing it right now. That may impact how we should be thinking about the numbers. But other than that, I don't understand what's going on in the economy very well. By my book, we should have been in a recession, in as late as March, and certainly by now. But everything seemed to be going tickety-boo until suddenly it wasn't.
Still suddenly it wasn't. Well, again, I think my feeling is it's all comes down at this point to the consumer because the government's not going to spend more. So it's all going to come down to the consumer. It's not going to be business investment. And besides, it's only like 10% of the market is business investment. So you got 70% is consumer spending.
Right.
If the consumer runs out of money, the recession will happen quickly. Sometimes it just happens when the consumer runs out of money. Sometimes that really hits quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many of the employed right now are employed on a part-time basis that the economy could contract faster than we've experienced in the past.
Right.
Because those people could be, shifted off work much faster than full-time employees.
Right.
So there is that possibility.
All right. Well, let's see. So anyway, you have no clear direction for the market to give us today. Do you think it'll go the full 10%? Do you think it'll keep going?
Yeah, it'll go the 10%.
Okay.
I think the direction is down. The downward momentum is there. I don't think it's stopping. I mean, it could go beyond the 10%. The bellwether to watch is actually the leader in the market. So watch NVIDIA.
Oh,
if NVIDIA continues down, then that indicates that sentiment, at the top is seriously negative. And so that's the bellwether. That is what convinced me we're in a down market.
so I watch Bitcoin, as you know, only from a technical standpoint. In other words,
Yep.
I'm not trying to figure out Bitcoin as a product,
Yep.
just as a market. Oh,
Sorry.
Okay. And Bitcoin as a market, we were expecting to see some action as a result of the halving.
Yeah.
The halving is now concluded. I didn't quite understand. It took a few days, I guess, from Thursday
Well, it does, yeah.
until today. So now the halving is concluded. Bitcoin is still trading in the 62 range or something like that, at 63.
The history of this is that after the halving, there's a lot of volatility. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but the history, there's a lot of volatility for a while, but then Bitcoin moves up. So we're probably in that period of we don't quite know, and we're trying to adjust to it, and so on and so forth.
And people have been trying to decide whether Bitcoin is a haven for, replacing gold as a haven. There's
gold is not being replaced right now. Gold is
the haven.
I mean, it's tracking. It's tracking what it's supposed to be doing for the first time in 30 years.
I know. So interesting. And Bitcoin, which was supposed to be the new haven, and it's kind of going the opposite way.
Yeah, but in truth, it's gone from 30,000 to 60,000 in the last 6 months. So, don't underestimate Bitcoin. Bitcoin could be 100,000 by the end of this year.
Okay, that's a could be, not a
Could be. That's not a projection. That's not a projection.
Because I'm holding you to it,
But I want to tell you one thing, and I'll close on this.
Okay.
I'm probably more fully invested as a limited partner in venture and in early stage activity than I've ever been.
Wow, interesting.
And less invested in the market than I've ever been. Why? Because early stage opportunities have compressed in terms of, valuation, and the market has continued to
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I see this as a generational opportunity. I wrote an essay, I don't know if you saw it, on startups, on the impact of AI on the business model for software. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't think I saw that. I should go back and get it.
Probably not in your wheelhouse. And I posted it on X. You can find it on X.
I'll go look.
I did in the last 3 weeks or so. I really believe that we're in a really, really interesting moment for startups. And I think this is going to be a renaissance year. Not a year, but a renaissance class of startups. Of the 50 or so, 500 or so, or 5,000, I don't know what the number is, of AI startups, only 5 or 10 or 15 are going to survive.
Yeah.
But those that do are going to become the next, the next Googles or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think Google is dead. I think Google is just
Interesting.
refusing to lie down and die. But I mean, they've been shot through the hole. They've shot themselves through the hole.
Right. Yeah. They could have obviously have time to figure it out, but well, okay. So we have Tesla probably down on Monday after this $2,000 price cut. I don't, unless he announces something really cool between now and Monday, we're probably going to see some more downward pressure. I thought
And
maybe
on
all the
Wednesday,
bad
we're
news
going
was in.
and on Wednesday, we're going to see significant downward
You think he'll
pressure.
be down after the meeting, unless
Yeah.
what if he confirms that Model 2, I hate to call it Model 2, but what if he confirms that the consumer version of the car is still totally on board for the second half of next year?
He's going to have to do more than that. He's going to have to give us what I talked about earlier. He's going to have to give us a clear sense of where he's taking the company, not product, but a clear sense of he's going to have to give us a clear idea of what he sees for the company in the coming year. And it doesn't have to be positive. It has to end on a positive note. He has to have that positivity. He has to say, yeah, this is a transition period. In this transition period, we're doing this, this, and this. And then beyond the transition period, we have the opportunity of this. And that's what the market is looking for him to say. And there are a lot of supporters who want him to say that.
A vision. All right, Larry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for helping out on this Saturday morning and Saturday evening for you. And we will try to figure out another time when we can meet next week.
Yeah, I'm good on the Monday call, and so we can, hopefully do that. It's up to you, really.
We'll see what we can figure out because we're both traveling, so it's really
Yeah.
so complicated. Okay, thanks again,
Thank you, Randy.
and to
Yeah.
all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.